Okay, so I suppose we kick it off. This is the first episode of the Colm and Jane show. So I suppose just getting into detail.
Ask Colm and Jane show.
Ask Colm and Jane show. That was a good start. That'll get us started. So I suppose just telling, when you think back of both your story and my story of how much things have changed in the last 10 years, especially for us, in how we changed both physically and mentally stronger. A lot of hard work, but we both changed big areas of our life to get to where we are today. And I suppose just getting the message out there to say to our customers that sometimes we think of maybe our struggles or our goals that we want to get is such a big task to do, and the small step we took, that maybe if we can help people identify them, it'll be easier for them.
Definitely, I suppose looking back over the past even 15 years of my own life, I suppose one lesson that I learned that's the most valuable lesson, I think that a lot of people are failing on this one, is in life in generally everyone's training for a 5k, we'll just use fitness terms, and they're training for this 5k, but I suppose life's a marathon, so it is, and it's a slow steady pace, and it's about setting the goals that's going to keep you in long term distance rather than short term. Short term happiness is something that a lot of people focus on, booking a holiday for today, 6 months time, and be happy and fulfilled when they get there, and so on, and maybe the new dress or the shopping outfit, this is kind of do, whereas your own general well-being and happiness, I suppose, is the long-term game, and it's focusing on that long-term game. It's kind of one of the most important things that I've learned over the past 15 years. But I suppose we'll dive into, I suppose you can kick it off into more or less how you, I suppose, changed your life, and I suppose what was your emotions and triggers looking back. Neither of us knew back then what exactly was going on, looking back now, through a lot of hard work and effort to kind of figure things out. So I'll let you kick it off, I suppose.
It's funny because there's no particular day that I can say my journey started on, but you know, going back to even listening to customers that come in here that they're on these diets, they're wanting quick fixes to lose weight, and you know, people look at me and say, you don't understand, I went through that journey, and going through a weight loss journey is like anything, it's like in business or anything, it's a long period of time, and like you say, it's not 5k, it's a marathon. And I suppose I never knew why I gained weight, I never knew how it even happened. It didn't happen overnight, I knew for sure, but I had no idea kind of the steps until I started doing a lot of personal development and actually figuring out kind of where I was going and the steps that I took. So I was like, right, what part of my life did I start to see a change? What part of my life do I remember that I fitted into that dress that I kind of always wanted to get, or the size 8 or size 10 dress that I thought once I get to there I'd be happy? And that was always kind of something that stuck to my head. It was like June 2009, that was the summer that I felt good in my clothes for the first time in my life. And when I look back, I was at least 2 years working on that. You know, if I was to tell somebody now that comes into a gym that wants to lose weight, you know, it might be a 2-year journey for happiness for the rest of your life. People think, that's too long, I don't want that. But them 2 years probably was a struggle for me. I went on every diet that's out there. You think of Slim World, Weight Watchers, Atkins diets, to suit diets. I tried all them. And like, you know, for me, it was fighting a losing battle. I was up 1 pound, down a pound, and I was constantly focusing on scales, but I never really thought about like how I felt, you know.
So it's, how much over that 2 years, roughly what weight loss did you come down from?
We were looking 4.5 stone roughly that I came down from my highest point of where I was to kind of where I am today, and where I got to in summer 2019, but I would have kind of went up and down.
I suppose like one of the most interesting things that I've heard you talk about before on that one is that even though it was a 2-year period where you actually lost your weight, but even in the years leading up after that, where you would still go into a shop and automatically pick up a size 14 or 16, how your image was, you still pictured yourself that girl with that weight on. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose that goes back to the mindset that I worked so hard to get to that size of clothes or that, you know, that body shape, but I never really focused on the way I thought about myself and the confidence I had in myself, and you know, what other people thought and how other people would be looking at me and stuff. That's what I didn't focus on, you know, the mindset element of things. And I think that's the world that we live in. We think that when this happens, we're going to feel good, or when I get to a size 8 or size 10 I'm going to feel good. When realistically, if you're not confident in yourself, it doesn't matter what size. And you've seen that with people as well.
Look, one of the most important, you have to enjoy the journey and the process of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable long term. And that's what we kind of have to build, is that long term sustainable, and finding a relationship with exercise or food or whatever it kind of is. But going back, I suppose now, like, what do you feel maybe now was your, what you talk about, you were 16, 17, 18 when you started gaining kind of weight. You were probably 19 before you really started to change it back to 21. Like, looking back now, what was your emotions to maybe comfort eating kind of?
You know, it's funny because it's probably only in the last 2 or 3 years that I've learned enough about myself to realise what they were. And look, everything, for me, I blamed different people and everybody else's fault. School, for me, attention span wasn't great, so I was always wanting to be outside. Unless I was doing PE, I didn't really want to be there. But, you know, going back to what we often talk about, your identity, and you'd be saying, geez, if I don't get X amount of points, and, you know, my uncle was the principal of my school, so I put this pressure on myself that I thought, geez, if I don't do well, that's failure. And putting pressure on yourself like that at a young age, I see it now with customers that come in here that are doing their leaving cert, that they put that pressure on. So I obviously used all that pressure and started eating the wrong foods. I always wanted to be physically active, but obviously through stress leaving cert, it just didn't work for me. I didn't have the coping skills back then, and I had a very supportive family, but I just didn't have the coping skills to deal with that I went into maybe emotionally eating, comfort eating, stuff like that. And that, it was only bit by bit. You don't just gain weight overnight. So it was just small steps.
So I suppose in the stories you were telling yourself as a 16-year-old, that you know, you put yourself under pressure to deliver on a leaving cert, comparing yourself to other people of how they did, or maybe how people went before you and your family and stuff like that.
100%, definitely.
You kind of, and then starting to value other people's opinions then as well, of what you do and things you kind of need. Another interesting one that I've heard you talk about over the years is that when you were in that 18, 19 years of age with the weight on, you always talked about the stories that you told yourself that you were genetically, it was in your genes, that there was...
I would have had quite a fixed mindset. We would have talked about that before, and even with your kind of story and growing up and that, you build in a set of belief systems yourself, and you're saying, this is true, this is where I'm at. You go back to saying, you know, if a parent or your aunties or your uncles or some members of your family are carrying weight, that you think that this is your journey and this is what you're supposed to be, and you're not going to be able to change it. And I hear it in the gym all the time. I actually had a woman last week that just talked about it, that was saying, you know, she actually came into me and she said, this is the exact same story as me. I always just thought that, you know, that part of the family was overweight and that was a struggle, and that's just something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. And I'm saying, I understand that that's your belief system for now, but belief systems can be changed. It might take you a longer time, it might be harder work for you than somebody else.
It's just mindset, it's just a fixed mindset versus growth mindset. That it can be changed over through hard work and dedication and those things. Then I suppose when you're going into, right, so there were the stories you were telling yourself when you were on, then till you finally flipped it over to realise that, you know, you needed to change, that you weren't happy and fulfilled. What steps were you going to take? So I presume you talked about finding your passion when you went to college, that things started changing.
Yeah, it did start changing. Like I said, there's no particular date, but I do recall small things, you know, even going back to food and your awareness of food. Like for me, I could have been sitting down after, like a typical country household, after dinner, the tea and biscuits come out, and I never would have had any awareness, right, I'm after 2 biscuits, put them away, or, you know, how many biscuits to have today. And when I started just being aware of, say, food, for example, the second situation of sitting down and having a meal with your family, and not sitting saying, well, I can't eat what everybody else is eating because I'm on this here. Eat with your family. I think that's a really important message, because if you're isolating yourself from what the norm is in your house, it's not sustainable. I tried it, and it was whenever I flipped it around of actually going, you know what, whatever mum was cooking, because mum was always the one that had the dinner on the table for us growing up, and she would always say, right, well, whatever we're having, I would talk a bit less maybe.
So just when it's portion control.
Yeah, just
eating at the right times, portion control, moderation, everything in moderation. I suppose. I think everybody kind of generally knows what they should and shouldn't be eating, but it's just about finding the balance and portion control. I think it's particularly for Irish people. I think portion control is massive, and we learned that. I definitely, one thing opened my eyes when I went to Australia, went travelling and stuff like that. The amount of portions that what they would eat versus what I would eat was unbelievable. But so then just starting to follow and finding out what your career and your passions was, and becoming more happy and fulfilled.
Like that, unless I wasn't doing PE or some sort of physical activity in school, I didn't really have much interest in it as such. So I knew that end of kind of sport. My family's a big, as you know, big GAA background, community, that sort of thing, that's what I was growing up around. So I was always into that, kind of getting involved in sports, really good community, stuff like that there. But then I branched out a bit more, that I thought, right, well, I started off in the coaching end of things, coaching kids, seeing kids develop. I knew I always had a lot of time and patience with helping people achieve. And just finding your passion, and I suppose then it goes back to your belief systems. I kind of often had, you know, a gym or gym instructor or something like that way at the back of my head. But I also felt that unless you didn't, you know, I had that stigma of a gym instructor. You had to live on chicken and broccoli and train 7 days a week to be a fitness instructor.
And you had to be ripped.
I had to be ripped. And I was like, hey, life's not about that for me. I'm after finding this balance that I can...
So you were kind of thinking, so that who's going to listen to me if I'm not, haven't got the perfect
if
balance?
I don't look like... Thing. Yeah, so, and what I flipped around and actually learned was, people love that. I speak to customers all the time and I'm like, I love bloody going out for me dinner and maybe a couple of drinks at the weekend. I love that I have that balance, and I love to hear that, because people are intimidated by that. People don't want that feeling and pressures. There's enough pressure.
I suppose, like, that's the picture that people paint of fitness. It's all about broccoli and spinach and sit-ups and press-ups. When it's not, it's about so much broad things. The human body is designed to be active, so it's just about, and we're getting less and less active as it goes on, with more technology and everything else, more office jobs, commuting, all those sort of things. And it's just about being active and being moving. But as you say, it's like 2 years probably to get the weight down, and then, as we talked about, still how your self-image of how you actually seen yourself.
But I think as well is that if you've some sort of, this is what I love about what we're doing at the minute, is that I feel like I'm a kind of a mentor for some people that maybe are finding this challenging, that you can say, right, well, you know, 3 times a week, we're not asking, saying people you have to change your whole life and you have to be a fitness junkie now. And that's, people don't want to start because they feel they have to commit to everything, you know. But if I was educated to know back then that, gosh, I can be a fitness instructor and have a balanced lifestyle, and not, you know, what we perceive in society and what's actually real sometimes is completely different. Yeah,
definitely. Like, when I look back, I suppose in my own background and my own experience, I was 1 of 10, so it was a pretty big family. We had to work for everything we got. We didn't have anything handed to us. My dad worked 12 hours a week, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then we did part-time farm as well, so it was quite full on. My mother was stay-at-home mom, reared us all. I suppose when my growing up, I suppose I was always taught to be practical. So I always thought very practical. Food for me, actually, I always seen food as energy. I always seen, even when I bought my first car, it was a Ford Mondeo, it was practical, it was a steady car, it was going to keep me long term, whereas everybody else was getting pimp my ride kind of cars. For me, I was always very practical kind of in growing up, but I suppose my mindset, was very, looking at a dyslexic school that wasn't really working out for me. From the age of 7, I stayed back from second class to first class. It's probably one of my earliest memories of how that kind of made me feel. I probably, by 11 or 12, I kind of realised that I'm not academically smart, that the only road that's out there is maybe construction, farming background, and that I just had to kind of settle for that kind of thing, and that was going to be where it kind of went for me. So school didn't work out for me. at all. I left after my junior cert, failed most of my junior cert exams. Off I went at 16 into the construction world. Tackled that one, just said that this is the way it is, this is what I've got to do. Look, I was 13 years in construction, one end of things, another. I suppose my turning point, was in around the 25 mark of life, where I realised that I was just, every week was just, is it Friday yet? And then when Friday comes, it's like, shit, Monday's coming now. So just every week was just not a lot of fulfilment and happiness. And then I just realised that coming in that 24, 25 mark, that I just couldn't sustain this. I can't rock on. I've probably lived 1/3 of my life. I can't go another 2/3 without that. So that's, I suppose, where I started challenging myself a little bit, and my belief systems and the stories that I was telling myself. It's tough. It's tough when you do something for so long, how you kind of flip it around. I suppose I started farming. I farmed on the family farm for nearly 17 years. I was farming there from I was about 10 years of age. So I did that. I suppose I always try to hold on to that, in terms of that if not academically smart, well, I don't earn the big money, so I'm going to have to hold on to this as my inheritance.
Must have been amazing when you started flipping around your mindset to realise that belief system that you felt held you back, you can still progress so much. You know, education's brilliant, and don't get me wrong, but it's not something that should hold everybody back.
No.
That must have been an amazing experience.
Definitely not. Like, I suppose in that one, like, that even held me back. My school experience held me back from going on to FOSS, from even qualifying as a carpenter. Even though it was anything got to do with paperwork or books, I just removed myself from that. And you always have to do an element of even talking. I didn't talk about it till I was about 25, 26, my school experience. Like, it was actually after I was 20 years, we were in New Zealand, before I actually sat down and had a full conversation with you around that one. But look, for me, when I just got to that point, feelings, I didn't know it back then, but I understand it now. Feelings are feedback to yourself, that you either need to stretch yourself a little bit more or take yourself back a little bit. I think I realised when I was about 25, 26 mark, that I needed to do, I was doing the same thing every day, expecting a different result. When you do the same thing, you continue to get the same result. And that started to drop into my head, realising I got to do different things, I got to change the way I operate. I moved out of home was the first thing I did. So I lived at home for 25, 6 years. So that was scary. The next thing I did was, after I moved home, it felt good. It was like a new experience, like a new me. So it was, to an extent. And I'm like, God, I like this feeling. So I've got to keep this. It started to fade a little bit, and then I'm like, shit, I want to get back there to where I was 3 or 4 months ago. I've got to get this momentum going again. So I realised, and I sat down and I just challenged my belief systems around farming and inheriting the farm and all of those sort of things. And then I realised that I do like farming, but it's not going to get me to where I want to go to in life. And I had to let go of farming, so I made a choice that I would quit farming and sold out from the farm. And just realised, and that got momentum going. They were all scary decisions, like literally doing something, living at home for 25 years, doing the same thing was a tough decision. Farming for 16, 17 years was a tough decision. So I did it. I realised I was like, it's scary. Before I did, I realised it actually feels kind of good now. Yeah. Then that kind of led into different things. Then I was like, right, I'm going on a month's holidays to Australia. So actually taking that money and spending it on myself. I didn't really value myself a lot in terms of buying stuff to treat myself. Yeah. I don't really know where that came from. I always took hand-me-down phones, so I never really zoomed in on those sort of things. So,
but I think you've hit the nail on your head there. It's about, that was the belief systems that you set up for yourself, and when you took one step, you went, this feels good. And like, I know our stories and our background, and we've kind of went through a lot of our journey together, so we both are very different and unique stories, but it's the same pattern, as in, we took one step, we felt good about it and thought, I want more of that feeling. I want to actually step again. Yeah. So whether it's weight loss, or whether it's changing your mindset, or whether it's applying for a job that you believe that you never were fit for, it's about actually going, I'm going to do something today.
Scary is growth.
Yeah.
When you're doing something that you're absolutely shitting yourself, it's growth. You're growing, you're developing. Look at, like, you seen last year I went and did jiu-jitsu, never did it, wasn't even into mixed martial arts, went and did it. But I've learned that in life you either win or you learn. We're so afraid of loss or losing or doing stuff wrong that it holds us back so much. And I kind of planted in that you either win or you learn. And if something doesn't go your way, you sit down and you study it. As I say, do a post-mortem on it, study it, what did I learn? And then it helps me to go forward into the next challenge of what it is that I want to do. But I suppose going travelling, and went on a month's holidays, came back and kind of realised that there was so many things in life that I'd missed out. And I was literally after working for 13 years, and something like 13 years before I did my first job interview.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I went to college. So I felt I missed out on so many things that help you expand and grow in life. And then I was like, whoa. So then I was like, I'm going to go to Australia. I left the job. It wasn't because of the recession or anything else. I left the job. I went for just life experience. I've got to go and see the world from a different point of view. And one of the biggest quotes that stick to me today is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah, exactly.
And it helps, comes over so many things. So off I went into Australia. I set myself a goal before I went, that every job I took, I actually challenged myself a little bit more. Take myself out of my little comfort zone. I think in the 2 years I probably had 6 jobs in Australia. I realised that I was acing them, and I'm like, people wanted me. And then I just started, self-awareness started clicking with me. I'm like, the stories that I've told myself for the past, right up until I was 25, I started challenging them beliefs and started challenging them. Look, it's the reason why that I'm part of this Me Time, what it's about today. I generally believe in looking back, that if I had to have someone that mentored me and held me accountable back then when I was 25, 26, I could have, for me it probably took a 5 or 6 year gap to flip my life around. Probably through mentoring and stuff, I probably could have did it in half that length. I suppose that's my message to people, I suppose, nowadays, is like, we all know inside, we know, but we're afraid to challenge it, and we've nobody maybe hold us accountable for it, and those sort of things. Talking is very powerful, and writing stuff down is super powerful. I started journaling when I was about 28. I was leaving work. I was in New Zealand at this point. I left. I actually went to work one day and I was just feeling like shit, and I picked out my phone and I handed in my notice. I emailed and I handed in my notice. And that was at 10 o'clock. I got a phone call by the project manager at 2 o'clock, and he literally goes to me, he goes, Colm, you have to hand in your notice. And I goes, yeah. He goes, what's wrong? And I hesitated for about 20 seconds, couldn't answer the question. And then I hung up the phone, it was 2 o'clock, and it never left my head the rest of the day. I was like, why did I do that? What actually triggered me? What made me do it? I think it was come to the point where I was starting to realise I didn't need to do construction, the story that I told myself for 12 or 14 years before that.
So that was a big turning point.
Big turning point. That day, I got dropped off at work. I used to have to walk 2 kilometres home. I was walking home and I was like, I need to do something with my life. I need to change something fast. I walked into a little shop, I bought a notepad and a pen, and I was like, I don't even remember exactly what I was going to do with it. I think one side of me wanted to go like, I'm going to learn spelling and I'm going to figure out this shit and I'm going to go to college and do my leaving set and repeat all that kind of stuff. Off I went home in the book and started doing spelling, and I was literally one day into it, I'm like, I did this in school for 12 years, it didn't work for me. It's a weakness of mine, but and next thing was I flipped over to the next page and I'm like, let's start identify a few strengths. At the start you could write down more weaknesses than you could strengths. So how I actually got my ball rolling, I suppose, in journaling was, I actually wrote down all the jobs I had. Then I wrote down another column, if I went back to any of them jobs, would they take me back? And then the answer was yes, and I'm like, I'm on to something here. Then I went into different columns, why would they take me back? I was always trustworthy, I always wanted to learn, was what I figured out from that one. Then I started really zooming in on self-awareness, I started zooming in on my strengths, and realised the things that I was good at. I was good at communicating. I was good at communicating, I was good at talking, I was good at taking instructions. And I noticed that a lot of jobs that I kind of went on, the people came to me with problems.
Yes,
and
you
then
felt like a leader.
Then I actually have leader skills here as well, and known to myself. Just really building into self-awareness. And even though I'd handed in my notice in that job, I continued to work on with it because I knew I was leaving New Zealand a couple of months later. I ended up 2 months later being called into an office where I was offered foreman of building a new hospital in Christchurch. It was a £300 million project, the biggest New Zealand government funded project, and I was offered foreman of it, and that was the final penny for me. It was like, I was like 3 years of doing this, I'm like, there's so much more to me. I can do whatever I want to do now if I can just put my mind to it. Mindset's so important, and I turned that job down. I finished up there, and 3 weeks later I came back to Ireland. That was in August. We had 2 family weddings. settled, enjoyed them, went to the family holidays. We were after being on the road for 2.5 years. It was time for some quality family time. Then we sat there at the drawing board, myself and you know where we came from there. We sat there at the drawing board and realised that we've got so much to offer. How do we go about offering it? That was kind of where I was coming from.
I suppose me time is something that, like, the history behind that is very simple, in the fact that as a society we don't do it. And me and you talked about this openly, that, like, for me growing up, associating time on your own is when there's something wrong with you, and that's kind of what I would have thought. And when I think now of the value of that, you know, how many people come into us in the gym here and say to us, you know, they don't like being on their own. You know, it's only recently somebody we talked about saying, you know, just getting out of your comfort zone and walking in here on their own. To say, you know, people just genuinely, as Irish societies, being on our own is, we would think of as isolation, and instead it's the most valuable thing you can do in a week.
Yeah, it's so powerful, I suppose, in terms of, look, I think everybody, I think in life in general, I think everybody everyone goes through a period, right? That 2 to 3 year period where they're probably the most stressed, the most worried, where they overthink everything, they start to value other people's opinions, all of those things. I think everybody will go through that. Some people go through that at 12 years of age and they've overcome it. Some people don't go through that at 60 years of age. Like, I remember having a conversation with a CBT, a cognitive behavioural therapist, and she was working with someone who was 56 years of age, and they were literally talking about when that person was 7, of what actually happened to them when they were 7. So I think everybody's going to go through that period at some point in life. I went through that point in life between probably 25 and 28. It probably took me a little bit longer to come out. It probably was maybe 30, so maybe it was 5-6 years. I suppose it's okay to get guidance and get help and get mentored through those things, because it speeds up the process. And then you start to focus on that long-term game and focus on that long-term happiness of what it is, results or whatever it may kind of be. I think that's the most important thing. But as you say, taking time for yourself. Like, I suppose in today's society, with social media and everything else, technology, it's not only important now to take physical time for yourself, but also to do mental work with yourself as well. Like, I know now, like, with the self-awareness that I've built in myself, I know now that I need 4 things in a week to have a successful, good, productive kind of week, where one thing or another. I know that I need 3 walks in nature. 3 walks in nature is my me times. It's complete meditation for me. It's where I connect with myself. I need to be out of bed by 7 o'clock. I've did it all my life. I've got up early. When I lie on now, I feel like shit, and my day goes wrong for me. So I know I need to be out of bed by 6-7 o'clock. Just get out of bed. Even if I'm working or not working, get out of bed. I need my 8 hours sleep. For one thing, I know I need my 8 hours sleep. I'm not a great sleeper, so therefore it takes me at least a half an hour to fall asleep. So I need to be in bed 8.5 hours. Like, I have to be in bed by 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock I have to be in bed.
It took you a lot of time by doing personal development.
Personal development, without a doubt.
So I suppose, and same, you know, we often talk about the importance of having them 3 places in your life. And we both train here, but it's still our work environment, and that's where the nature comes with you. And for me, like, I go back bloody 10 years trying to do yoga, but because my head was always so busy, I always thought that I can't do it. And probably a year back now, when I started yoga, it's only now that I'm realising this is so important for me. That 3rd place is to go to yoga at least once a week, and it's part of me. But it took me years of chipping away and trying things, so it's about not giving up as well. If you need something in your life that's important, keep chipping away at it step by step.
For me, right, the big turning point was me, where you talk about me, Tim. Last year I did a personal development course, right? I did it for 6 months, right? For 120 days straight. I came in here 5:10 in the morning. I did an hour and a half in the morning, half an hour in the evening. And you know that. And I came in here and I did it. The reason why I did it at 5 o'clock in the morning was that nobody was going to ring me. Nobody was going to email me. I had no distractions. I had absolutely no distractions. I came in here, I did it. What I did was, I literally went back to my earliest memories and I literally studied the triggers and the emotions that was attached to certain things, how certain things made me feel growing up, how it affected me later on in life. Maybe where was the point where my confidence, at what age did I start telling myself that I'm not academically smart, that I needed to be construction or farming. And I literally zoomed in. I zoomed in on things that were so important. Like I zoomed in, who was my role model? What did my role models see? What way did they speak to me? How did they talk to me? Those sort of things. Like my granny was my role model.
Yeah.
And actually looking back now, I didn't realise it. My granny died when I was about 25. It was about a year after my granny died where I became lost in life. I didn't have that anymore.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that was kind of missing. But that was my role model that kept me guided and kept me grounded, right? And when I realised when that was gone, then that was where I became a year or two where I was totally confused and stuff. But I've learned so many things about the emotions and things that I went through. Like I remember going through at 18, 19, 20, being super pissed off, blaming the blaming game kicked in. It was everyone's fault. It was well, if mum had to make me stay at school and do my leaving cert. My mum did a good job to keep me there to do my junior cert.
Yeah.
If she probably didn't keep me grounded, I was probably gone after first year.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't going. But the emotions that you attach to the thing, how people make you feel, how you retaliate to that person. But I noticed that I just became, at that age, it was the blaming game. It was everyone's fault. When you're blaming, you become angry.
Yeah.
And you look at misery loves company. And that's what it is. That's bottom line. So when you're miserable, you end up expressing that to people outside you. And then you end up doing all sorts of things. For you, maybe it was comfort eating. For me, it was probably going on the piss and getting shit-faced and being an idiot as well. Doing things that you didn't want to do.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And looking back at that, but it's just about finding that little bit of guidance of how to come out of that. There's so many things. Look at, like I describe it as just pretend life is in this bag. And in that bag, you've got so many important things. You've got your self-awareness, you've got your environment, you've got your self-image, you've got your habits, you've got your goals, the things that you want from life. And in that bag, you've got everything. But it's just so messed up for a lot of people. And when they hit a problem, a difficulty or struggle, and they look into the bag, it's just so messed up and they do not kind of know where to look. I suppose one of my dream would be is to help people sort out that bag, that when maybe it's their goal or it's their habit or it's their environment, that they can literally dip in and go and put the things into a filing cabinet and say, I've got a difficulty or struggle here, I think this is my environment. And you literally take it out and you sit down and look at it and then you can fix it. But a lot of people are afraid to talk about those sort of subjects, particularly whether it's around family or what it's kind of around. So for me,
I think it's identifying where your struggle is can be a hard point before you even, go in deeper to it. It's actually just figuring out which one is it.
It's about that me
the
time,
awareness.
taking that, putting your hand. Look at the power of talking about things. Like you look back 10 years we're in a relationship. You go back through our relationship to the points where I suppose it was farming, I was caught up, where you were like, the weekend was for you and you were like saying to me, let's do stuff on a Saturday. I was like, no, farming's all my thing of a Saturday environment kind of thing. And this was my belief system and how I instilled myself into that. Even looking back for me, I suppose, and growing up for me, my father worked in the same place for 25 years. He provided food for us, worked hard, 10 of us putting us through school, all of those sort of things. Then lost his job probably in around the 2007, that kind of mark. He's probably coming into his 50s, so at his point he was like, where am I going to get another job, change careers, those sort of things. That ended into my father doing a lot of drinking, probably for the next 10 or 12 years. So not only in the farm, and for me, that's the environment that I was kind of in. So there wasn't a lot of, I suppose, encouragement maybe growing up and things like that. So environment is super important. So when I kind of moved out of home, I suppose, and even taking that, even selling up from the farm, changing my environment was a key thing for me. I suppose I became angry then. I became angry at my father. I became angry at certain different things in life, as to why was the thing that was going through my head. But when I did a lot of personal development and studied my own behaviour patterns and how things kind of work, I suppose my dad probably maybe replicated what his dad maybe did, and maybe he didn't have the tips and tools to flip it around kind of thing.
It's about understanding, I think.
Yeah, for me it's definitely about, no justified resentment. I suppose meaning that I think this is a powerful one, that when you get bit by a snake, you can't be unbitten. Once you're bit, you're bit. The snake bite will never kill you. It's the venom that pours through your systems that's going to destroy you. And only you as a human being can determine whether you let that venom pour through your system and destroy you. And that's what a lot of people do. It's sometimes you just got to let things kind of go and see it from a different point of view. Change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think that's a super important one.
Yeah, and you know, we do say that all the time, that if you're in that kind of negative energy, or you talk about them energy drainers or whatever, and I suppose that's something that's really important for us. And even going back to what Me Time Training's about, is that we're always, and even with our staff, our team, we're always talking about providing positive energy. And it's unbelievable. You can see people that come into the gym here and they're really down, or works after stressing the life out of them all day, and they come in here and they're just exhausted, and they're saying, oh, I don't even know why I'm here. You know, and then because the environment's so powerful, we're providing positive energy. The people around them's positive energy. They actually come up to us after it and say, Jane, I feel so good after that.
But I don't think people realise the power of communication, the power of a conversation. Let it be a spouse or even your child, your daughter, your son, whatever it is. The power of actually telling how you kind of feel.
Yeah.
Like, look at, like you've got your thinking, your whole thinking process, and then you've got your emotions. So we'd say one's here and one's here. We're being overrun by our thinking process. In particularly in today's society, we value other people's opinions way too much, so we do. And it's dictating a lot of people's success and happiness and fulfillment on a day-to-day basis. Whereas we've kind of lost all, like we're 15 years of high-end social media, right? And it probably observes 70% of people's attention, right? We probably live in one of the greatest eras of all time. We've got the internet. We've got so much more stuff now than we didn't have 30 years ago. Unfortunately, social media is the toilet of the internet, and that's what takes people's attention. And what that does is, with like 15 years of high-end social media, we've never been taught how to use it. Yeah. Right? And what it's doing is it's pulling away from our own emotions. Yeah. We're going further away and further away from our own emotions through general conversations, communicating, those sort of things, and understanding what we kind of want from it. I think that's a powerful one, in understanding that social media is not, we can't be blaming social media for like, we've got the highest obesity in Europe, we've got the highest mental health in Europe. I think now we've got the highest anorexic. Mental health's in the middle of that. I suppose in weight gain, weight loss, of where that stands, we tend to point the finger towards social media. Technology's not going anywhere. We need to figure out how to use it.
And it can be powerful,
we need to connect back to our own emotions. Like, I talk about being dyslexic, reading and those sort of things don't work for me, but if I watch a video, a tutorial, like, I spend nearly an hour every day in self-educating through YouTube. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of hours of content there if you use it the right way. Like, I never had a Facebook account, so it never distracted me in those sort of terms. So really, in zooming into that one, social media, it is powerful, it's good to chat, it's social, you're supposed to be social element, but unfortunately we're painting the wrong pictures on it, and we're zooming in and we're following too many trends and doing what too many other people are doing, and we're just losing connection with ourselves and our own emotion, our own happiness and our own thoughts, and just allowing other people's opinions dictate our own kind of lives, those sort of things.
One particular customer we have that came in here, I think she's about 6 months now, and like the difference in when she first walked in the door, head was down, quite shy, didn't interact with people, was quite a scary experience for her to come through the door alone, never mind anything else. And just by like knowing her name whenever she came in the door, having a conversation with her, telling her the exercises that need to do, and knowing that there's 3 ways of doing everything and it's absolutely fine no matter what way you do it. To see her now coming in the door, she's chatting to people, she's more, she's more energy coming in, and we've actually been told so many times that, oh, my partner has seen such a difference in me. I come home now and I'm a completely different person. Do you know, it's a really nice feeling, and that's, I suppose, for me.
Yeah, I suppose one thing I remember during one of the mentoring sessions and even consultations, that we've carried out nearly close to between 750 to 800 consultations, and listening and noting what people kind of, what the problems and difficulties and struggle is, and building a model around that to kind of target that. But I remember you coming out from a consultation and chatting to, and you were on about, this person was saying that, once I put the kids to bed, I just a cup of tea and a pack of biscuits, and it's not one biscuit, it's 2 biscuits, it's a packet of biscuits. I remember you kind of saying to her, you were like, well, like, why is it the same time? Who does be with you, one thing or other? And she was like, oh no, I'm on my own. And then you were like, well, is
do you like your own company? No, I hate my own company.
Yeah,
And
I'm one of them.
You kind of figure out. So we actually identified what her trigger was. She hit her own company. When she put the kids to bed and she was on her own, she actually went to comfort eat because she couldn't her own space. That's how much she kind of and how that person felt by identifying. That was a small little thing by identifying that. When you identify something, you can go to work on it. But it's about identifying is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's very heartwarming. Look, at both of us are very driven on results. Results make us happy, and getting feedback for those sort of things of how them things come across. Yeah. It even gives us driving more. Going back to what you talked about at the start, like if it's weight loss or it's mindset or it's just mental health in general. Like it's like I suppose being in business for us, like you hit so many barriers, you hit so many hurdles, but you never give up. Like we've hit a lot of stuff over the past 2.5 years. Our first week we opened here, nobody showed up. We were after spending $3.5 grand in marketing. We were giving away a 1 week free trial, and we literally walked up here for 1 week, and we were after putting in 4 months of solid work into it, and nobody showed up. Like that was some kick in the stomach, but we didn't lay down. We knew that look, we this is what we want, and we've got to keep going. And we've hit a lot of different obstacles and things like that, but it's like any journey. It's about not giving up and just realizing what you learn from it. And just it makes you stronger, it makes you grow wiser, and it just stretches you. It's all about stretching yourself that little bit more. I suppose one thing that worked for me in business is that only compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and you'll always stretch yourself that little bit more. We've an awful habit of comparing ourselves to somebody else's results. Look at if we were here 1 year and we got 100 customers, that's quite good for any fitness business, so it is. And you got there, you'd be quite happy and fulfilled with that and achieved that yourself. And then you go on to social media and someone turns in and goes, oh, they got 100 customers in 6 months. And you're like, oh shit, I didn't do so bad. You can get so demotivated. So only compare yourself to who you were. And that's one powerful thing that we always kind of push out there.
People forget though, like how many customers say to me, you know, oh, I don't know if I'm getting any fit or these classes, I don't know. And I'm saying, do you remember when you first walked in the store? You couldn't do X, you couldn't do Y, you couldn't do Z, you were exhausted, you were such and such. And they're like, gosh, I really have come a long way, but I've been just getting so caught up in wanting to get better, that they kind of forgot the journey.
Oh, we're our own worst critics. Like the way we speak to ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves is so unbelievable. And one thing that I think in today's society is we need to deploy more patience.
Yeah.
We need to play the patience game. Life is a marathon. It's slow and steady, and staying focused on it, not sprinting for a 5k. And understand that you need to deploy patience and where you're going to go and what you're going to go. People think like, right, you're in a job and you don't like it. You don't have to go in and hand in your notice and just jack it. You can literally say, well, what is it that I want to do? And say, right, in 12 months' time, I'm going to start to do whatever it is that I need to change my job in 12 months' time. Yeah. If it's, you want to go out and open your own business, well, start saving money that you can financially comfort. So it's just about, people think, right, well, I need to just make a decision and make a harsh decision now. You need to make decisions promptly, but then just focus on what they are as well. But definitely, I suppose, like 800, 750 on average consultations later, you know what people's struggles are and difficulties, and then you just build that kind of to.
But I think what you're saying, and I remember an event we were at, I think it was Jerry Duffy's event. He was really really hit home with me for a lot of things, because one of the lines he used was to respect your goal. So if you respect something, it's like a relationship, right? And you don't one day decide you're in it and the next day you're not. So if you have a goal or a vision that you have to achieve, don't just be on Monday respecting that goal and come Friday and Saturday go with turn your back to it. Because at the end of the day, if you're constantly one day respecting it and then one day you're not going to get the full results. And that's what he talked about, was if you have a goal in mind, respect it.
Yeah.
Stick with it. Don't give up on it. And you know, it's like you said, the hurdles we come across in business. If every time we had a blip or something we put money or hard work into that didn't work, we give up on it, we wouldn't be here. Oh, you know, like, so that's the same
like
with
most people think life is a straight line.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to go straight from A to Z in a straight line. It's not. It's like a heart rate monitor. It goes up and down.
Yeah.
and up and down, and understanding that when you're down, you work towards getting back up, and then when you're up, you remember the times you were down, and that's life. You might need to get from here to the corner of the room. Sometimes you might end up over there, but you're still going to get to the end of the room, the corner of the room.
I think that's a valuable message for people, because going back to patience and having them goals, just respect your goal and be patient at getting there. You will always get there. It might take others faster time. Some people could do a 10-week challenge here and have amazing results and a lot of their goals achieved. The next person, it could take them that bit longer, but once you respect it, you don't give up on it as much.
Definitely, yeah. I suppose, particularly through our program between the fitness and the mindset element of things, like it's so heartwarming. Like 6 months later, how someone's saying, "Wow, like only 5, this has changed my life." Like my family saying I'm such a different person. Those sort of things, like those things is what keeps us motivated and inspires us to keep doing what we're doing and even grow and expand and stretch even more.
But it's even knowing that and recognising it and going, like even for us in business terms, when things aren't going right, it's taking a step back and going, right, well, why is it not going right? What can we do differently to try and make it better,
Just about having those conversations.
Yeah.
Communication is super important.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah. Just one thing I need to know, I'm listening to this conversation and getting motivated, I might go straight to the gym after. You're talking about goals and journey.
Yeah.
You didn't touch on, you talked about your individual journeys and getting to a certain point. Me time, how did you end up here where you are now? With me time, I'm just a little bit about what me time is about.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So we were in New Zealand. There was an F45 franchise which was super cool training. We were in New Zealand, trained in New Zealand as well. Then I was like, I'm out of construction, I'm done with it. And then I was like, let's take an F45 franchise. I came home from it one morning, and then we emailed them, and then they started talking to us. So then we came back there and went to London to a conference to take. We were the first one in there, and there's 4 of them in there. And then we went to the conference and came home, and we felt that it was catering for 10% of the people in Ireland, not the other 90%. So we felt that, even though we were excited about that, we felt that we needed to. So off we went and built something that was more or less mirrors, less intimidating, more on helping people set their goals and consultations, whereas it was for the 10% of people. And that's kind of where it comes. So
basically our passion is helping people get to a stage that they're at, that they maybe lack confidence, find exercise intimidated, have been to previous places with gyms.
So I suppose what we're going into now, is how Me Time training came about, what kind of, how it actually happened. I suppose at that point, when you talk about all the self-awareness in New Zealand and stuff like that, the point where I realised that I refused that job down from the construction job, foreman job, down to realise that I didn't need to do construction. I kind of started mapping out, like, what was it? So I was always into fitness, I was obsessed with sports. I was in Australia for 2 years, I studied EFL, how to train, training techniques and everything. Once I discovered that Australia was about 5 years ahead of us in terms of health and well-being, exercise and everything kind of did. So we kind of trained through that one. So I suppose we were in New Zealand one day and there was a franchise, Australian franchise, which was exploding at the time with functional training. And I was like, I'm out of construction, I'm like, fitness, sport, I am obsessed with it, known to myself. And then we were in the house one Saturday morning and I was like, Jane, let's take one of these fitness franchises. And Jane probably thought I was a bit mad, did you?
Probably at the time, as the journey went, we were kind of like, are we mad, are we not? But I always knew that we had something kind of different to, we thought, we could go franchise, and then we're like, no, we want to actually build something.
Well, that was later on, but at that point, I suppose, you were like franchised, and that was scary, the two of us going in, working for yourself, all those sort of things. We started looking into the franchise, got a few emails back about it. We flew back home, we went to London to a conference. At the time, F45 franchise was expanding, it was functional training, it was expanding massively across Australia. We came home, we drove out of Belfast, drove to Belfast, flew out of Belfast, over to the conference. We sat in the conference, it was super interesting. We would have had the first one to Ireland, which was super interesting, that one, but there was something missing, wasn't there?
Yeah, I suppose that particular point, I suppose I often thought that I always wanted to let people know that fitness isn't intimidating. But I think the main point is, and it's only now that we're realising how important it was that only 10% of the population like to see what's in the mirror. People don't like mirrors. People aren't self-motivated, and that's what gyms are equipped for. So I suppose building Me Time was to get us to actually a place where people can come, have a bit of fun, feel good doing it, and not feel intimidated.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it was. I suppose that was going to fall in with the 10% of fit people in Ireland, where that suited Australia because they're 5 years ahead of us. We have a massive problem on the back end of the scale where it's 90% of the other people, and we felt that, look, at going back to what we spoke about earlier, results makes both of us happy. So there was going to be more results in this one. So we kind of, as you said, just build that place where it was Me Time, as you talk about. The name actually, Jane actually come up with the actual name. We actually designed the logo ourselves, so we did. Jane come up with the name, and I'm like, yeah, that's so interesting. I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. That's how it came. Me and Jane was back home that time. We literally lived at home with Jane's parents. 3 months we sat at the drawing board or kitchen table every day, and we mapped it out step by step. Like so many different things that we'd never did before. We had to come up with a name, set up a business, bank accounts, all of those things, and then set up equipment, and then building a model of what we want to do. There was so much, 3 months of hard graft going into it and kitting it out. But we knew at that point that we realised that there was 90% of people in Ireland were 5 years behind most other countries in terms of health and well-being. And look, one of our main goals is to catch us up to scratch where it is and get Ireland up and going, moving, the way we think, all of those sort of things. So that was kind of where it actually originated from.
Yeah, it was just fitness element of thing, and just to have an environment where people are actually coming to and having fun and not being intimidated. But I think we've evolved a lot in the sense that, like most businesses, what their original idea might be, you scale and you grow and you learn. But it's about now, we've kind of went for that holistic approach that, you know what, forget about the body, forget about the before and after picture. Let's bloody feel good in ourselves. Let's actually we've built an online mindset program that has helped people change their lives. And I suppose that for me is now even evolving into more that we're passionate about, is going, like, forget about, you know, everybody knows if you have a Snickers in one hand and an apple in the other hand, which one's the healthier option. Get away from all that. Let's actually just have a bit of fun and enjoy the process that you're doing.
Yeah, like the fat loss industry in Ireland for years just yo-yoing up and down, up and down, up and down. I suppose we didn't want to just jump into that thing where we were going to yo-yo up and down with it. That's why it's not moving, it's yo-yoing. A lot of it's set up kind of based to do, well, I want to give the people so much, but I don't want to give them everything. I don't really want to educate them, because if I educate them, they feel that they're not going to come back and I'm going to lose customers and I'm not going to grow. Whereas we discovered, like in Drogheda here alone, there's rural Drogheda, there's 50,000. It would literally take us 20 years to train everybody in Drogheda that's eligible to train. There's a new generation after that. So that's why we're passionate about giving people the information, giving them the tips and tools. Look, at motivation is a crap kind of word, so it is. You need to build tools and tips and systems that's going to help you, that when something goes wrong, you hit an obstacle or whatever it is, that you have got the tools to kind of flip it around, turn around the other way, and build that long-term marathon. That's what it's about, long-term, and getting us up to scratch to where we need to be. Yeah,
but even going back into the early days of, you know, Me Time, and going back to what it's all about, I think for both of us, it was scary. Like, starting it, we were thinking, gosh, we're not going to be like every other gym that has mirrors in it, that there's only fit people in it. So that was scary, just starting off that journey of it. But we both knew that this was something that was really important in Ireland, in Drogheda, that you can go somewhere and actually just feel good in a really good environment.
This year was scary at the start. You know what I mean? So you have to start somewhere, but it's just about getting your message out there. And we're not going to stop with one gym either. Like, we've a lot of scary things to do. So that's what I find. I like to keep stretching myself and taking myself out of my comfort zone. This is the first episode of this, so look, as I was saying, as we just doing this here was scary for us and going forward. We hope to do this every week. We're going to listen to the public, to use the people. You give us your questions, your questions of what your difficulties or struggles is. Me and Jane, throughout week to week, we'll answer them, just to help us get our message out there, get Ireland up and moving, get changing the way we think, and getting us up to scratch with most other countries in terms of health and well-being. I know a lot of people use the word mental health. I'm a big fan of mental happiness. I think is more important way to put it across. We will continue to do this on a weekly basis. We'll be putting it across on our Lima page. We'll be putting it on our Facebook. And you can contact Instagram, you can just private message us, email us, whatever the questions is, and we will touch base on them each week.